It is late, and a young woman sits alone at a computer, the light of the screen on her face, her hand resting on the curve of her pregnant belly. She is scrolling through a website full of missing children, little faces, one after another, children who vanished years and decades ago. She is not a detective. She is not looking for anyone in particular. In a way she cannot explain, she is looking for herself. And then she stops. There is a photograph of a baby, and something about it reaches into her chest and squeezes, because that baby does not just look like any child. That baby looks exactly like her own newborn daughter, the little girl she gave birth to not long ago. The same face, the same eyes. She leans closer. Beside the old baby picture, there is a second image, a computer drawing, an age progression, a guess at what that missing infant might look like grown into a woman of about 19. And that face, the grown-up one, is the face she sees every morning in the mirror. The young woman goes by the name Nedra Nance, and in this quiet moment, in front of a glowing screen, she is about to do something almost no person on earth has ever done. She is about to solve her own kidnapping. Her real name, a name she does not even know yet, is Carlina White, and she was stolen from a hospital when she was 19 days old. Welcome back to our channel. Please tell us where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. We truly appreciate you staying tuned for our documentary. Now, let's get to it. The night that made all of this possible happened in the summer of 1987 at Harlem Hospital in New York City. A 16-year-old girl named Joy White is frightened. Her baby daughter, Carlina, is only 19 days old, and the infant has spiked a high fever. So Joy does what any terrified young mother would do. She wraps up her baby, and she rushes her to the hospital, and she puts her child in the hands of the people who are supposed to know better. The doctors decide to keep little Carlina overnight. They lay her in a hospital crib. They put a thin tube in her tiny arm to give her fluids and medicine, and they tell the young mother that her daughter is in good hands. Somewhere in that hospital, a woman is watching all of it. She is wearing a crisp nurse's uniform. She looks like she belongs there, like one more caring face among the scrubs and the badges. And she comes to Joy, this exhausted 16-year-old, and she is kind to her. She comforts her. She tells Joy that everything is going to be fine, that she should go home and get some rest, that her baby will be safe here through the night. And Joy, who is young and frightened and has no reason on earth to doubt a nurse, believes her. She goes home to rest. But the woman in the uniform is not a nurse. Her name is Ann Petway, and by some accounts she has suffered miscarriage after miscarriage, and she is carrying a desperate, aching need for a baby of her own, a pressure that is built and built until it is about to spill over into something monstrous. In the early hours of the 5th of August, while most of the ward sleeps, and while the security cameras are, by later accounts, not even recording, Ann Petway walks quietly to Carlina's crib. She slips the little tube out of the baby's arm, she wraps the infant in a blanket, and she simply carries her out of the building and into the night, as though she is any nurse holding any child. She takes the baby onto a train, out of the city, north to Bridgeport, Connecticut. And just like that, 19-day-old Carlina White is gone. When Joy White comes back to the hospital, her daughter's crib is empty. Picture that for a moment. A 16-year-old mother told to go home and rest, returning to find nothing where her baby should be. No one can tell her where her daughter is. No one can tell her who took her, or why, or whether the child is even still alive. The father, Carl Tyson, is thrown into the same nightmare. Their newborn has vanished from inside a hospital, one of the few places on earth a parent is told to trust without question. Days pass with no answer, then weeks, then years. The case goes cold. And 100 miles away, a little girl begins to grow up under a stolen name in a life quietly built on the worst day of someone else's. Ann Petway raises the baby as her own and calls her Nedra Nance. And here is one of the most uncomfortable knots in this entire story. and it deserves honesty. By Carlina's own account, years later, the woman who raised her was not physically cruel to her. This is not a tale of a child chained in a basement or starved in a back room. It was something quieter than that, and in its own way, stranger. An ordinary-looking childhood, with school and holidays and everyday routines, resting on top of a stolen baby, and a lie that would hold for 23 years. But a lie that big leaves cracks. And from a very young age, Nedra can feel them. She does not look like the woman raising her. Her skin is lighter. When relatives smile and call her Little Anne, she cannot see the resemblance they claim to see. She feels, in a way she cannot put into words as a child, slightly out of place in her own family, like a puzzle piece pressed into the wrong spot. Later, a New York police lieutenant named Christopher Zimmerman would put it plainly. He would say that Nedra Nance had always been very suspicious of who she really was and what family had raised her. He would point out the thing that sat underneath all of it. There was no paper trail to follow her, no birth certificate, no social security card. On the most basic documents that prove a person exists, she barely did. And at some point in her childhood, the woman raising her offers an explanation for the strangeness. She tells Nedra that her real mother had been an addict, a woman too sunk in her troubles to care for a baby, a woman who had simply handed her over. It is meant to close the subject for good. Instead, it does the opposite, because it is a story with nothing behind it. No names, no records, no photograph, no relative, no single solid fact a growing girl can hold in her hand and say, "Here, this is where I come from." The feeling stays with her into adulthood, and then it collides with something concrete. Because when Nedra grows up and becomes pregnant with a child of her own, that missing paperwork stops being a strange background hum and becomes a wall she cannot climb. She needs a birth certificate. She needs it for something as ordinary as a health insurance form. And the woman who raised her cannot produce a real one, cannot explain the plain facts of Nedra's own existence. That is the moment a lifelong feeling finally sharpens into a single, specific, unavoidable question. Who am I, actually? No one is going to answer it for her, so she decides to answer it herself. This is not the work of a single dramatic evening. It takes years. Nedra keeps coming back to the internet, to websites for missing children, comparing, searching, wondering. She spends time on the site run by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, scrolling through case after case, face after face of children who disappeared decades ago. She is doing, alone and unofficially, the exact work that no detective ever managed to do for her. And then, one night, 7 years after that first pregnancy planted the question in her, she finds the photograph. The baby whose face matches her own daughter's face. The age-progressed drawing that matches the woman in her mirror. She sits with the impossible weight of it. The missing baby in the picture has a name, Carlina White. And slowly, then all at once, Nedra understands that she is looking at herself, that she is the missing child, that the little girl the whole system gave up on has grown up and walked back into the room on her own 2 feet. She picks up the phone and she calls the center. And a chain of phone calls begins that will cross 23 years in a single afternoon. Because on the 4th of January, in the year 2011, someone from the center dials a number in New York and reaches a woman named Joy White. Joy is no longer 16. She is a grown woman who has carried a specific grief for more than 2 decades. Through all of those years, she had never once taken her missing daughter's photograph off her dresser. And when the phone call comes, when a stranger tells her that her daughter may have been found alive, Joy White screams, and she cries. Before the science is even finished, Carlina and Joy and Carl begin talking on the phone. A daughter and the parent she was stolen from, feeling their way across a lifetime of silence. Carlina flies to New York to meet them. And then a DNA test confirms what the photographs had already whispered. The young woman who grew up as Nedra Nance is without a doubt the biological daughter of Joy White and Carl Tyson. She is Carlina White, the 19-day-old baby carried out of Harlem Hospital in the dark 23 years earlier. Her real name was never Nedra at all. The missing baby had been found, alive, grown, a mother herself now, and she had found her own way home. Not through a detective or a lucky tip, but through her own stubborn refusal to accept that the pieces of her life did not fit together. For a moment, it is everything you would want it to be. Joy White would describe that first rush of reunion in words that glow. She said she was on such a high when she first reunited with her daughter. She said she was floating in the air. She said she was so happy that the moment was so great. And this is where the story becomes something far more honest and far more human than a fairy tale. Because 23 years is not a gap you can simply close with a hug and a headline. The reunion that started with tears and cameras and joy does not stay simple for long. These are, in the most literal sense, strangers who share blood. Carlina has an entire life, an entire self, built under another name in another state. Joy and Carl have spent more than 2 decades grieving an infant, and now that infant is a grown woman with her own history, her own wounds, her own expectations of them. Within weeks, the strain begins to show, and a great deal of it circles back to money in a way that traces all the way to the beginning of the story. After baby Carlina was stolen, Joy and Carl had sued the hospital that let it happen. In 1992, they settled that lawsuit for $750,000. But that settlement came 19 years before Carlina ever reappeared. By the time she did, the money was long gone, spent across 2 decades of ordinary, struggling life. So when Carlina comes home and begins asking about it, there's very little left to give her, except the pain of the asking. The warm headlines curdle, and Joy White, the mother who lost a newborn and got back a grown stranger, speaks the quiet, devastating truth of it out loud. She said it was like the two of them were 2 strangers, that they did not really know each other. She said her daughter asked a lot of questions about the money, but the money was gone. Later, weeping through a legal proceeding, Joy would say the thing underneath all of it. She said she had lost 23 years of being with her daughter. 23 years filled with pain and heartache. Carl Tyson, the father, holds on to something steadier. He knows it will take time. He says there are 23 years he can never get back, and that everything simply has to start from right here and move forward. He texts his daughter every single day. He is not pretending the family is whole. He is just refusing to stop trying to make it so. As for the woman who caused all of it, the truth finally catches up with her too. Ann Petway, the woman who walked out of Harlem Hospital with someone else's baby and raised that child as her own for 23 years, eventually surrenders. She admits what she did. She pleads guilty to kidnapping, and she is sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. It is, against the size of what she took, a small number. 23 years of a family, a childhood that belonged to other people, a mother's peace, a name. Carl Tyson fills that gap between the crime and the punishment, and he says so plainly. He figures Ann Petway should have gotten 23 years behind bars, 1 year for every year she stole, because that, he says, is exactly what she took from him, 23 of them. But there is one thing Ann Petway could not keep in the end, and it is the thing this entire story turns on. She could steal Carlina White. She could rename her and raise her and bury the truth under decades in a missing birth certificate and a lie about a mother who never existed. But she could not stop that little girl from growing up and feeling in her very bones that something was wrong. She could not stop a young woman, pregnant with her own child, from sitting down at a computer in the dark and going looking for the truth. And she could not stop Carlina from recognizing her own face in the photograph of a stolen baby and carrying herself, at last, back home. And Carlina, for her part, seems to grasp something hard and wise about the cost of all of it. She said that if she held all of that anger inside her, she would be the one to suffer for it, and it would stop her from living her own life. After everything that had been taken from her, she was not willing to hand over her future too. She was 19 days old when a stranger carried her out into the night. It took 23 years, and in the end, she had to do it herself. But Carlina White found the missing child, and the missing child was her.